anyị na Chineke nna nke pụrụ ihe niile onye ọ bụ naanị ya na-azọpụta onye ọ bụ naanị ya bụ okwu ya niile bụ ihe na amen anyị wee na-asị ezi ebube dị ngọzi na n'ụtụtụ na ịja mma na nsọpụrụ site n'ebighị ebi ma ruo n'ebighị ebi ise ise ise.
Welcome, my amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are joining from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed. If you are joining me from Africa, Asia, Europe, America, Australia, or any part of the world, I thank you very much for your contribution. Please, each time you watch my video, go to the comment section and put down your comment. That is where we'll
to proceed with some clarity, let us formulate the problem we are trying to solve that faces Nigeria today. So I come to the conclusion that the overarching problem of Nigeria today is political mismanagement on a colossal scale, regardless of the motivations. The core components of that mismanagement are division, alienation, and malicious nepotism. So how do you, having formulated the problem as such, how do you respond to it? Right. The response coming from the three frontliners, so to say, you have two that are incurably defective. You cannot address division with divisiveness. Those two parties, the APC and PDP, they are guilty by the constitution of their presidential ticket of that flaw of divisiveness. So without doing much already, there's that alternative that is compelling. There's no rational analysis of Nigeria's problems that you will make. Let us assume that you have a computer in which you feed the problems of Nigeria. You feed in the profile of the presidential candidates, then identify what you are responding to, and ask the computer to come up with a scale to grade those contestants. There is no rational person who will not grade Peter will be far above those two. So this is the problem, but the previous speaker did say, and it's very important, and this kind of thing should not be waved aside. They are in the first place, the conventions of both the PDP and APC are the typical problems that Nigeria have. So you have a set of people wanting to continue with the problem. There is no way you can despise corruption and take part in the convention of those two parties the way they did it. Fucking up 400 million naira as nomination form, which meant nothing to them. The other one, 40 million, they turned into a bazaar. So that is already a disqualifier. Right? And then, of course, you go forward with the constitution of those two presidential tickets. Now, the vice presidential candidate of APC, he has a record. He has a record of overreaching himself, of hubris, So what he said at that forum, if that is what we have in store for us, then Nigerians, the choices are clear. How can a running mate go in a conference anywhere to say that you will be in charge of security and your principal will be in charge of... Imagine Kamala Harris in the U.S. addressing the American Bar Association and say, look, I'm going to take charge of the security and Biden will take care of the economy. So look, and so it is self-evident, the impossibility of this kind of politics is pretty evident. They are giving you an indication of what they are all along the way. Right? First with the convention,
the point you're making,
with the constitution of their presidential ticket.
Mr. Oshuntoku, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just a second. So I'd like to allow Mr. Hilebo come in here because the point you're making stems from what he had started talking about. But before you get into that conversation, let me just state clearly that we had invited Mr. Bayo Nanuga, who is the Director of Media and Publicity of the Tinubu APC Presidential Campaign Organization, and he had agreed to come for this engagement, but he did not show up. So just to put that out there. Your point, please.
Well, if I were him, I'd probably not want to turn up the answer to this sort of, because this misfire. And again, I say, I'm glad my brother, who was with us in the PDP, like I say, it's all PDP people out there. I'll give you the context of this conversation. Here you have a vice presidential candidate. I'll go into the context of the individual and his antecedents, and then I'll tell you where he made a comment. He goes on the AGC of the Nigerian Bar Association. And by the way, it's not the first time. In 2018, President Buhari went to the NBA and said national security supersedes the Constitution and the human rights aspects of the Constitution, in a way saying that the national security of the country supersedes the Constitution. I mean, on the floor of the... And then move forward to 2 years after that, in 2022, you hear a vice presidential candidate actually sit up at the NBA and say he will lead the troops. Section 230 defines who the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is, and is specific that the president is the commander-in-chief. Section 218 is specific about the roles that the president, the commander-in-chief, appoints the heads of the security force. And if he decides to delegate that authority, he can delegate it to members of the armed forces only. And you have someone who is going to be the president, a heartbeat away from the president, saying that he's going to take charge of the military and relegate the president to the traditional role of the head of the economic team, that he did it in Lagos, and so he will do it at the federal level. And you start to wonder, this man is going to swear to an oath. There's a real possibility that he becomes president, that ticket becomes viable. And then this man has told you ahead of time. Let me tell you about this character we call, or the individual, or the vice presidential candidate of the APC. This is the same man. When the Chibok incident happened, now Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, where we discussed earlier, issued then, as junior minister, issued a directive that move all secondary school students to the capital and have your exams there. Governor Shettima ignored this directive and opened the door to a profitable venture where terrorists now see it that it is a prime thing to kidnap students, and it hasn't stopped since that day. Now, let me tell you another incident. Christians were about to celebrate a very sacred festival to them, Christmas, in Madala, Abuja. There was a bombing. The mastermind of that bombing, who incidentally is at large today, Kabiru Sokoto, was arrested in the government lodge of Borno State when Kashim Shettima was governor of Borno.
Are these facts?
These are facts. He was arrested by the DSS in the governor's lodge. Till today, we have not been able to disassociate him from tales that align him with this terrorist organization.
So how does that explain? How does that become viable if he's not been prosecuted in that regard till today?
The question is, this is the person that will arrogate to himself at a forum where lawyers have gathered, the biggest forum of lawyers, that he will take charge of the responsibilities of the commander-in-chief. And somehow we overlooked it as a country. People were more interested in his dress sense and his sneakers. But do you know the funny thing? The person that actually put it out in public was an SAL. Festus Keyamo put that on Twitter, and that's why we saw it.
Let me go to Mr. Oshintokun in Lagos. While it would seem that, of course, you and the Labour Party and then Anthony in the PDP will take a swipe at the APC. One of the clear question I'd ask you is, with regard to political will, as far as security is concerned, why would anyone pick Peter Obi ahead of Atiku if you've X'd out the All Progressives Congress now?
Why would anybody pick what?
Why would anyone Obi, with regard to the fight against the insecurity, ahead of...
Now, maybe you have a narrow definition of insecurity. The security crisis that we face today is a subcategory of the political mismanagement I was talking about. Now, when you are confronted with challenges, you mobilize your citizens in any social units that you have. To the extent that the members of that unit are disunited, maliciously so, it is to that extent that you are ab initio a failure. With all this just insecure. Look, I don't need to go into particulars, but this is a problem that this government. You talk about national unity and integration, right? The president likes talking about it. Go and look at his practical records. Sometimes a day after making such, coming to sucking up to what he calls national unity and integration, is as if they have a different meaning of what unity and integration means. You cannot promote unity and integration with division, with malicious nepotism. Listen, look, and you can come up with practical experiences. We are talking about security now. Under this president, we have had 3 chiefs of army staffs. All the three of them, they are northern Muslims. Is that a coincidence? Is that an accident? Is that the president so sensitive to the complexity and the plurality of Nigeria? You have the national secretary, national security.
Yes, I'll shoot up in just a second. I feel you may have missed the question.
Which question?
You have already stated clearly that the All Progressives Congress is incapable. And I asked you, in comparison with former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who is now the PDP presidential candidate, why would anyone pick Peter Obi to be Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces to battle security ahead of Atiku Abubakar? The APC is not here to speak for itself, so it's
and
best
that is precisely what I was
doing. Go at yourselves.
If you recall, I told you that your own definition of insecurity is narrow. It's a subset of a major crisis. I don't define security. You want me to be talking about saying that you buy fighter jets, you will do that? No. The earlier speaker spoke of the context. You situate the problem that you have within the context so that you can get the rightful answer. You don't have, are you saying that insecurity in Nigeria today is not related to the division and alienation within the country? This is where all these things take root, right? Many of these violence we are seen all over the place. They are manifestations of no sense of belonging. People don't have a vested interest in the peace and stability of Nigeria. You don't treat what you love, what you like, by treating it by causing bloodshed, or the person who steals 100 billion naira, you don't treat what you appreciate, what you want. You don't treat that way. The way Nigeria is being treated by both the president and the citizens is that they don't have a stake in the durability of the country itself. So I don't see how your own definition
Once
of
again, Mr. Hillable would like to come in here, but I'm still trying to understand your response. Because someone like Peter Obi, there had been allegations that while he was a governor of Anambra State, that insecurity was not something that he was able to curtail while he was governor. Now he wants to be president. And so my concern and the question I asked you was, in terms of tackling the insecurity, beyond knowing the challenge, what's the solution? I ask this question because on a number of occasions we've had the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. We've also had Mr. Peter Obi, who have always insisted that they understand the challenge, but they don't want to divulge or talk about the issue of security. Is that reassuring enough for Nigerians to vote for the Labour Party? So in comparison with what they have and the PDP, what should Nigerians go for, and why?
Mr. Interviewer, look, I am a student of Nigerian politics, especially war, crisis, and strategy. I should know what I'm talking about, right? They tell you that war is a continuation of politics by other means. What that tells you is that the war you are seeing has a root from where it developed. If you want to look for Peter Obi's nitpick on him or his inadequacies, that is up to you. What he did in Anambra that I have seen so far, and nobody has contradicted it, was the extent to which he was able to contain the festering crisis there. So, look, I don't know your own definition of security crisis or insecurity, but I've just told you now. They are inseparable from the political context in which it is taking place. So if you want to address security in Nigeria, you've got to have a mind with that. It's not what you say. Before General Buhari came to office, was he not talking about how you are going to contain, as a general, as this and that? And then he got into office. And by dint of his own style and substance of his government, rather than abate, the security crisis kept escalating. So how do you divorce? And I'm telling you, divisiveness is contradictory to unity or whatever it is. How many, those whom he has appointed as Inspector General of Police, please, I'm telling you, if you don't want a broad-minded answer to you have your own idea of what to say, but I'm telling you that anybody who wants to confront the security challenge facing this country, you've got to face the political mismanagement squarely. Get Nigerians together. Mobilize them as a family.
Let me bring in Anthony Hilleboy here, please. Let me bring Anthony Hilleboy. In terms of fighting insecurity, just like Mr. Oshutokun just said, that Nigerians had high hopes for President Buhari just before he came in because of his antecedents as a military general at the time. Your principle, why should Nigerians trust him with insecurity?
Well, I think, Terry, I understand Mr. Oshitoku's dilemma, because even the response he was giving you is a response that we all know is the response of Vice President Atiku Abubakar. He was asked this question in an interview, and subsequently we had the interview of the Labour Party candidate or the Vice President, where he said, they have, I think it was you, and he said they have the solution. But Vice President Atiku Abubakar has been very clear about what needs to be done about our security. First of all, the first comment he made about it was the architecture itself, the non-inclusion of other regions in Cking. And this is coming from a northerner, by the way. And he identified it as, how can we have service chiefs across board that are from one region and have been perpetually unable to resolve this issue? And he talked about the entire mindset of the military feeling like an inclusive military. That first of all, we needed to get the mindset of the military right and our security agencies understanding the bigger problem, which is the safety and sanctity of the country at large, not an ethnic problem that we need to resolve, and not one that we need to empower our neighbors or out of distrust for whether the military would possibly coup him. He decided to stick with people from his own ethnic background. That is the first problem. And I think if you look at the answer he was trying to give you, he picked up aspects of what Vice President Atiku Abubakar had inundated that he wanted. Clearly has been a leader in providing security solutions by saying, I will, if need be, I will increase what is going to the military, but I will ensure that people are held accountable for positions they are given to manage.
All right. I think we could take a quick break here. Welcome back to Sunday Politics. We're still talking about 2023 and the nation we want as a people. My guests have just been joined, or we have just been joined by a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Ayo Oyalo. Welcome to Sunday Politics.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let me just speak it from here, because before you came, both the PDP representative and the Labour Party representative had accused the vice presidential candidate of the APC of what you termed, what Anthony termed, a proposed coup. He said that your vice presidential candidate had said that he would be in charge of security if his party wins in 2023, and that's unconstitutional. How do you respond to that?
Good evening. I didn't hear how they put it, but I know it is their job to misinform people, and whatever he said to deliberately mispresent it. It's a team work. You're going to have a president and a vice president. When he said he will be in charge, he will not be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Definitely, he will be the vice president by constitution. But it's a team. What he's trying to say is that probably because of his experience coming from where used to be a hot spot, that's Borno, he will be able to leverage on that. And I don't see anything wrong in that. He will not be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. We know he cannot be. So it is clear that the opposition deliberately will misrepresent whatever he said. They will deliberately amplify whatever they want to amplify. But it is left for Nigerians to discern. I mean, Nigerians are not stupid people. Everybody knows that the president ordinarily will be, by the constitutional power given unto him, be the commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that will not change.
So you're confident that going into 2023, that the Nigerians would give the APC another shot, regardless of the state of the security in the country. What would the APC do differently in 2023?
You see, it's easy for us to sit down here and say everything we want to say. Yes, there are issues of insecurity. Nobody can doubt it. But you cannot say that the current APC government has not tried to do what should be done. Yes, it was before we came into power as the APC government. I'm not in government, so I don't want to let people not misunderstand what I mean. Before the APC came into power, we had the northeast of Nigeria was completely almost ungovernable. Today, that is not the story. Yes, clearly, some of those fighters must have run away because of the heat and moved into other places. And you see, it's easy to also point at failings and pretend that there are no victories. In the past few weeks, we know that the Tucano jets that were bought by the president were clearly to be used for this kind of fight. But because it was in the original agreement that it was going to be used against terrorists, the bandits have been designated as terrorists. Now they're no longer bandits, so you can use them, but you still needed the clearance before you can start using it. And the moment Nigeria got the clearance, we could see what has happened in the last 2-3 weeks. But of course, the press is not talking about it, and the opposition will not talk about it. It makes them feel good to keep talking about insecurity as if it gives them some kind of orgasm. But we've been having huge security, a lot of victories in the last few weeks. So, like the president and the vice presidential candidate of the APC said, we will, whatever this government has done well, especially in terms of infrastructure, they will build on it, and the areas that needs adjustment and continuous working on. You see, you can't solve security problem forever. In one fell swoop. Every country in the world has a security challenge. The United States of America, that is supposed to be the world #1 superpower, every day you have gun violence, you have, at least on a weekly basis you hear, but you will not close down the country because there are pockets of insecurity. You will always try to work around it and ensure you solve the problem. Before, monies that were meant to use to equip our military were being shared by these people like Bade Souvenir. Today, we see equipment being bought. We see hardware, military hardware being bought. Yes, there will always be insecurity, but that the president has not done his job is a fallacy. And unfortunately, wherever there have been victory, it's been on the plate. So it's easy to, 2 military men were caught just a few weeks ago. They killed somebody, and as we speak, they've been dealt with. They've now been handed over to the police to do their job in terms of the civil litigation. They've been dealt with by the military laws. This does not happen in the past. So we've seen policemen who have been charged for doing wrong things on the street. Today, about 2 in the last few weeks have been removed from police and going to be punished. So it tells you that things are working, even if we have some major, some
Okay,
issues here and there.
let's go to something else and find out if it's actually working. Let's go to Lagos now and talk to Mr. Cking, who is the Southwest leader of the Labour Party, and find out what the Labour Party thinks about the state of education in the country and the root cause, and possibly how the Labour Party intends to solve the issue should it win in 2023.
I don't know. You have to be specific. I assume you are talking about the ASU crisis, right? That's negotiation. That is, look, again,
Education generally, the education sector generally.
the education sector generally will take a whole day to address meaningfully, right? And that will take it, that also, because there's an element of it that is constitutional. I don't think the federal government, for instance, should take part in primary education under any circumstance. But that's why I said, look, anyway, it's a vast, very vast subject that we can spend the next 1 hour talking about it. The most topical thing about education today is the state of the tertiary institution, as represented by the ASU crisis. Now, again, of course, this government has, is constant in saying one thing and doing another thing. The ASU had an agreement, right, with the government on how to proceed. Where it became difficult to sustain probably what it would take to solve the problems that we're talking about. Now, you don't then go ahead and start threatening them that you won't pay their salaries, you won't do this, you won't do that. And of course, the Minister of Education, who is in charge of the negotiation itself, to show that, people who have bad faith, when they talk. He was the one engolding ASU, I think 8 years ago. ASU should not relent in striking. They are doing a patriotic job by going on strike. That was actually his own position. Now, so he finds himself precisely in which he can then exercise authority according to his own analysis. And then, but all of a sudden, the same ASU now has become a demon. So education in Nigeria, as I said, is part of the... Look, Nigeria, you cannot nitpick. What Nigeria is facing is a systemic crisis in which you cannot isolate one sector for attention without addressing the whole. As if, for instance, the security that we are talking about today. Okay, let's say you solve the problem of ASU, and then they go back to school. And maybe the following week, some bandits go to that campus, kidnap 80 people. So these are the ways problems, but there's nowhere you cannot isolate a specific, issue or challenge of this government. That's why we advocate the approach of constitutional reforms. You take it as a whole, a holistic appreciation of the challenges that you have, because they are all messy. It's true. I was reading a report before I came here about the Oronsaye report on how to respond to the heavy current budget they have in the country, and recommended mergers. Now going through that, what he said, what the paper said, the logic was compelling. There are agencies or parastatals of government that are being duplicated all over the place. And also, you have that, but again, Nigerians who are good at producing papers and whatever it is, we overanalyze. The problem is the implementation gap. This president, when he got to the office, the first thing he said was that he would throw into the archives, that whatever Jonathan did is for the archives. So how the country can progress under that situation is not. People have been talking about national dialogue. It's not a joke. There is nothing you can do in Nigeria today without some kind of, stimulating consensus, stimulating good faith, and things like that. As you stop ASU problem, what about the medical sector of society, the medical colleges and things? What would be? Don't they have problems that we need to solve? And what the economists look at the foreign exchange problems that we have. Now, look, every Nigeria is getting poorer by the day because of the free fall of the naira. As the naira is depreciating, so is your pocket, getting poorer, and all those If your naira is worth $1 today.
All right, Mr. Oshutoko.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Let me go to Anthony Ayilebo now, critics of Mr. Tikwa.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you, and remember this. Bye-bye. See you again.